This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Still waiting in line? Again? That's time you'll never get back. Save time and money with Stamps.com. Over 4 million businesses have skipped the line with Stamps.com. Join them to save up to 90% off carrier rates from your computer or phone right now. Print postage for certified mail, registered mail, and packages in seconds. Then schedule a pickup right from your home or office. For a limited time, go to Stamps.com and use code PODCAST for a free welcome gift. Taxes and fees apply.
This is our Wetland Soil Augers Buyer's Guide. I am Mark Seelinger from the Swamp School, and I want to answer one of the most frequently asked questions by our wetland delineation students. What type of soil auger should I buy? A quick browse through any of the forestry supply companies' catalogs, and you are quickly overwhelmed. Who would have thought that there are so many different types of soil augers? Some of them are quite expensive. Many are modular, and you end up buying a part of an auger, and then you have to order more parts. You do not want to drop $1,000 on an auger only to find out that is not what you needed or expected. To help you get a handle on this, I put together a pros and cons list of some of the most common soil augers used for wetland delineation. This list is based on my personal field experience with these augers. Each has its place to be prepared, so be prepared to buy a few. I do have a favorite all-around auger, which I will also cover, and I do own a bunch. Now, first one we're going to start with is the tube sampler. This is a favorite for the beginning wetland delineators, largely because it's the cheapest. So it's the biggest asset is it's the cheapest. However, it has some limitations. The basic construction is a simple tube that is cut open at the bottom, and there's usually about a 16-inch half pipe slice that is used to examine the soil profile in situ. The very end is a ring that everyone gets their fingers stuck in. A good one is about 24 inches in length with an opening extending 16 to 18 inches. There's a short handle on the top. Sometimes this is detachable with a screw fitting. Sometimes it's just welded on. Others have sometimes other handles you can add on as extensions. The former is a bit more expensive with the ones that are welded. One of the biggest advantages of this type of auger is the small footprint it makes. And in glacial regions, it is sometimes the only auger you can get in between the rocks. It is also very handy for quick assessments. The biggest disadvantage is a relatively small amount of soil sample that the auger extracts. Oftentimes, it's just not enough to sample to make wetland determinations. Small rocks are also a problem as they will plug up the tube end. The issue of cleaning the sample out is also a challenge. It is sharp and the right size to get your fingers stuck, so use a stick to clean it out. And they also bend after a while. Now, the next one we're going to go over is the screw auger. This looks like a giant corkscrew. The screw is about 1 foot long and about 2 to 3 feet in total length. The screw is usually attached by extension bars that can be added to achieve a comfortable length. It is a larger footprint than the tube sampler, and is similarly useful in glaciated regions. The biggest challenge with the screw auger is the ability to measure the thickness of a hydric soil feature. The screw blade are about 1/2 inch thick. This results in a stretching of the soil sample. It's hard to estimate how thick a feature may be using this auger. It also provides a very small soil sample. You have to kind of pull it off the flight. Now, the most common type of auger is the bucket auger. This is mostly used by soil scientists, however, not necessarily by wetland delineators. The basic design looks like a coffee can with one end open and the other end having 2 blades welded onto it. An extension bar connects it between the bucket and a T-handle on the top. All of these items can be customized to fit the user's need. If you're just starting out in wetland delineations, you probably will be handed one of these bucket augers. It's largely because it's one's lying in the back of the office that somebody bought, and once they used it once, and there it sits, and they don't want to buy another one, and you're new, so they're just going to hand you this old thing. I do not have a lot of pros to offer with this type of auger. The biggest problem is that it grinds up the soil profile, making it very hard to distinguish hydric features of the soil. It also requires that once you auger down and grab a sample, you then have to tip the bucket upside down and bang out the sample. This also obscures the features. Soil scientists like these augers because they're trying to obtain a discrete sample at a specific depth. This is usually why the extension bars are so long. I have seen these augers in the field over the last, that basically they've been over 6 feet long. I've actually worked with a guy one time, he used to bring a little ladder so he could get down even deeper. So, but usually this is very popular with the soil scientists. Now, the Dutch auger, which is my favorite, this auger was made for wetland delineations. It's a double blade at the end of an extension bar and T-handle. Basically, it cuts a very nice sample without disturbing the profile integrity. You can usually auger down several feet fairly easily and lay out your samples in more or less the same way you would have found them in the pit. You can get a decent amount of samples to play with. There are a number of brands and styles for this type of auger. Camp is the one that I've pretty much a big fan of. I like the Camps. The biggest difference between the individual styles is represented by the size and pitch of the blades. The original use of the Dutch auger was for muddy soils. However, there have been many modifications to the design, and there is such a thing as a combination auger that works well in loamy soils as well as mud. Now, the sharpshooter. This is also known as a tree planting spade. It is simply a shovel that is about 4 inches wide and 16 inches long. It digs a small hole and cuts nice samples. In a pinch, this shovel will work in almost any circumstance. The biggest advantage to this sampler is the cost. You can pick one of these up in your local home improvement center for anywhere from $25 to $35. Most of the other augers are well north of $200 each. The biggest downside to this device is the work associated with it. Digging a hole is a lot of work. You get a nice amount of samples. You can even cut a nice sidewall to see the profile. However, this takes a lot of work due to the size of the spade. One last note is the issue of quick connects. To be frank, I've yet to see one that actually works once they're put to use in the field. The fittings get gummed up with dirt and the quick connect jams. I would suggest going with the all-welded design. They usually are cheaper. You're not going to take these apart anyway, so why spend the extra money? If you need to travel by airplane, TSA is not going to let you carry these on, so there's no need to break them down. Just check them, or better yet, buy a shovel for $25 and go and when you get to the job site, which is an easier one. Also, the screws that they have, they're not necessarily quick connects, they're screws. They'll also get all jammed up with soil once you start using them a few times. So they look nice in the box, but once you get actually using them, you pretty much are, they're going to weld together on their own. So a welded one, might as well just use the welded one. So that's a quick overview of some of the more common soil augers that are used for wetland delineations. And again, the Dutch auger, the Camp combination auger, I think 7.5 centimeters, something like that, I think is the one that is the spec on that. They're hard to find outside of like forestry suppliers and Ben Meadows and those types of, actually Ben Meadows is out of business, or they were subsumed by forestry suppliers, but they're basically the single source on that. Camp does have a shop in North Carolina. There's actually they're out of Holland, but they're the Netherlands. They basically have the North American. It was in North Carolina, and they did have a little store you could buy stuff at. So that is a place to go. Shipping is usually an issue with all of these. They tend to be very expensive to ship. You could spend $100 on the auger and $200 on shipping. So just be aware of that as well. So that's our quick summary of augers to be used for wetland delineations. Have a great day.
If your fashion wish list lives rent-free in your brain, you need to be on Poshmark. With Poshmark, you're shopping millions of listings from thousands of closets, each curated by someone with their own style. Vintage finds, designer pieces, and everyday staples all in one place. Search for your favorites or let the discovery come to you. Poshmark makes it easy to find what you actually want to wear at prices that feel like a quiet win. Download the Poshmark app today and use code PODCAST10 when you sign up to get $10 off your first purchase.